Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Our group was the largest group of the breakout sessions, and I have to compliment them, first of all, on their ability to organize themselves and work together in a pretty tight time frame and do a rather impressive job in working their way through the set of 4 questions. To begin with, when they talked about community sustainability, everyone referred to question 1 as the big question. And what I'm going to try and do here is to give you a sense, because it wouldn't be possible to go into all the details of what was generated, but to at least give you some sense of the discussion, the flavor of the discussion. And there are several stacks of flip chart sheets and other papers recording all the details that are available to back this up as the plans are fleshed out in more of a legible fashion. I think the way we started was rather interesting. And what came out in the discussion at the end was that we talked about some context. And in the context that was important was what were the challenges of communities, and to help get our thinking focused on this. So we talked challenges of communities, the threats, what are the negative factors that influence communities really all around the world. Things like lack of infrastructure, the rural exodus, poverty, conflict, negative external forces trying to shift things. And then, on the other hand, we take into account there's a lot of factors of resiliency when communities organize and organize to meet the basic needs no matter what the situation is. And so we have a lot of things. We have a lot of social cohesion that comes as a result through the diversity of the communities, through conflict management, and through the formation of common visions. And a lot of these things, Model forests are very much part and parcel of those processes. So the result of looking at question 1 really led to a tremendous number of activities being identified. And people commented that was a really interesting part of the whole exercise, was that dialogue happening around those tables. When we look at what came out of those discussions under question 1, there were really 3 sub-themes that tended to come out at us. One was leadership, which includes youth and capacity building, capacity development. Second one was enterprise development and commerce, and that included e-commerce, so that was a subject of discussion. And thirdly was community sustainability with reference to access to resources and engagement, access through governance. So we had those rather clear 3 sub-themes, and all the activities tended to be listed directly under them. The second question, and we tried to group all this as we went through this, our reporting team. And the second question, of course, is what are the accomplishments in the next up to the 3 to 5 years? What sort of activities and milestones? So in the short term, if we generalize a lot of what was talked about, it was primarily came up with the idea of good communications, and repeated across several groups was the importance and the emphasis on really avoiding silos. And one of the most effective tools available to us, of course, is our ability and I would say our affinity as a group to network. A second short-term item identified, fundraising. And that's no surprise, it comes up on regular in our discussion. But it got into some details. For example, the idea of not just fundraising, but the availability of seed funds. A third item under that category of short-term was to look at criteria for sustainability of communities. Do we really know what we're working towards? Do we have a definition of that? Another of the short-term things that needs to get done, the development of terms of reference for any of the working groups that are functioning in this area. The final thing, more of a specific one, a specific example, is the idea of having a database of products, services that are generated by small and medium-sized enterprises in the areas of the model forest, within the boundaries, say, of the model forest. The interesting part of this, if you think of it, is looking at the terms of reference. One of the concerns, of course, is making sure of avoiding the silos. So a good step is understanding not only what this group is doing, but what the other groups are doing as well. In the medium term, promoting success stories. Probably our biggest challenge is deciding which ones to promote, but there's many available to us. Secondly, to get on with the work by creating the working groups and having them polish, refine, and implement their strategic plans. Knowledge sharing at the international level. And an interesting one that came out several times was the importance of having tools and systems in place that ensure the model forest reputation, and it was not clear there was a solid agreement on the word branding, but perhaps branding was developed, enhanced, protected, and put in place. And such things that would go along with that, such as having standards, having certification. In the long term, these statements perhaps are more of vision statements. What do we want to have or see or identify in the longer term? And so the first one was that all model forests have a leadership program and share their experiences. Another one was the idea of using e-commerce tools that are established on a very well-structured basis. Final one, in terms of a visionary statement perhaps, is the idea of influencing internal structures and policies, such as influencing financing, by providing exemplary cases from this wonderful collective model forest experience that we have. And so by doing that, we inform, we influence, and we use the power of many to try and get it right out there in our communities. So move to question 3. That was the question, should there be a working group? There was no question about having a working group, but the discussion went beyond that. So a working group is needed, but not just one working group perhaps, but multiple working groups, and include activities within those working groups that would address scientific research, look at catalysts for funding and financing, and catalysts for sharing information. And this is a point relates to what I said earlier about the idea of avoiding silos, to look at links to the other strategic initiatives. We just heard of ecological goods and services, and so to connect with those. And to also look at the working groups having a spread that covers the regional level and making sure that the right tools are in place to ensure good coordination and good networking. So for example, a simple thing of having the provisions in place to ensure that whatever is done in 3 languages. Question 4, she looked at resources, contributions, and asked for some specific examples. And there were quite a number that were identified and specific examples highlighted and specific points made about what could contribute it. But overall, perhaps if you look at this, the idea is that we have an international network with proven success that works in rural areas. So we have a chance to inform, to influence, and participate in the design and flow of finances and those associated programs at the global level. That's a major contribution that we are making. When we look at the individual model forests have a responsibility to always think about the links to this international level whenever they're designing their program and they're planning their activities. Finally, the idea of identifying competent people that are in the field working on the projects. And these are not necessarily staff that are directly employed by model forest organizations, but they could be with partners and others. And also tying into regional experts that can contribute to the success of these programs. So identifying those and making them available to the broader network itself is an important contribution. Now, we started out in this, we were really focused on getting through questions 1 through 4, and we're feeling that if we did that, it would be quite good. But we actually had some of our members were actually able to address the final group of questions, which really dealt with roles, and they are important questions. The first was with respect to the Secretariat. The idea is to see it as being a part of, and a lot of these roles, I think the example that was used in fleshing these out was the idea of the leadership side of things. And in terms of this strategic activity, that the Secretariat needs to be a part of it. Its role is to help identify funds, but more importantly is to adopt the results of that work, to incorporate it into its activities, to internalize it, and to help replicate the success of that activity throughout the other regions that maybe were not as directly involved in the initial stages of that particular task or activity. Finally, moving to the regional networks level, at this level it's clearly seen a major responsibility is for fundraising and to support, to implement, and also over time consolidate the program that's occurring across multiple model forests. And then when we talk about the actual model forest site itself, its principal role is to implement the program, but also to provide the words that we use, to provide the nourishment and the enrichment to the network as a whole that comes from having their experience of being in communities on the ground and delivering a program. Thank you.